Welcome back to Mac and Wise Podcast. Thank you guys for stopping by. I know your time is valuable, so we won't waste anything. Without further ado, I told you Dennis Porter, the man, the legend, is here, and we're going to talk about gun violence, and we're going to talk about anti-gun violence. Dennis, go ahead.
Well, first of all, my name is Dennis Porter. I'm the founder and chief operating officer of Prodigal Sons and Daughters Redirection Services, founded in Newark, New Jersey, of all places, in Northern State Prison, while I was there doing 25 years to life. In the 11th year, I was thrown into the hole, and while in the hole, I had a revelation. And the revelation pretty much outlined for me that if I did the opposite of what I was presently doing, I should get the opposite result. Everything that I had been taught by older prisoners about what my true purpose was, and that I was a young man coming in the system and I still had time to fix my life, to correct all of the mistakes that I had made, and even to make my life a model for other individuals who would probably find themselves in the same position I was in. And so it was from that hole that I began to construct the idea of putting together a program that was a step-by-step system to help others. So that's pretty much how we got started.
Okay. So you said when you first arrived as a what was you? Were you a youth still?
Yes, I was 17 years old.
Oh, so they had tried you as an adult when you were a youth.
Yes.
Right. So when you arrived there, and you said they were older guys that were there
in the system.
In the system, right? So did they mentor you? And what was the mentorship that they gave you? Like, what kind of understanding did you get that you formed?
Right.
When you went into the hole,
right? You
formed some kind of.
Yeah, I was able to develop a system, a program, a curriculum, but it was in the beginning when I came into the system, and it was a lot of older guys there, of course, who were out of the neighborhood. They were out of the Newark streets, and I knew them. And in knowing them, a lot of those guys pretty much educated me right away. As soon as I came in with my tough guy image of thinking that I had to uphold the street facade, you know.
Right.
A lot of the guys practically laughed at me, you know. So they began to tell me that with them knowing my family and knowing that previous to my so-called criminal history, I had been a good kid. I had, not had any trouble at all with the law in my entire life, and then I had become an Arts High student. Right. I had even qualified for Arts High.
Right.
So pretty much everybody felt like I was on the right trajectory. And I'll go into it a little bit in a minute, but once I got in the system, just to answer your questions, these guys saw me, and they immediately began to put me into a regiment of learning. Of course, there were different circles in the prison, and if I would have rebelled, they probably would have let me went on about my business in the jailhouse or whatever group I wanted to get with. But I noticed that these were the most influential guys, most respected guys in the prison. And they put me into reading books and writing essays to make sure I understood what the books were saying.
Right.
And I had to come out into the yard and relay the information and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that went on for 11 years. And then in the 11th year, I was thrown into the hole.
Okay, well, tell me, why was you thrown into the hole? I mean, what caused that situation where that, because the hole is when you commit some kind of
institutional sort of infraction,
call it. Right.
What happened was,
because this is the reason why I asked you that, Dennis, is because this is where you got enlightened. This is where
this is from the hole.
From that hole, yeah. So that's why I wanted to know what caused that. Cause and effect, means and ends, right? So whatever effect it caused, that's the means to why you're here now.
Right.
So give me that.
Well, I had been in Northern State Prison since it opened, and now I had been there maybe close to a year. And the housing officer I had was, well, I don't know whether he was really racist, but I know he was definitely abusive in some regard.
Okay.
And, you know, I, by that time, was considered an OG, because I've been in the system by this time
For
10, 11 years,
Right,
you see?
right, right.
And so for that reason, these guys now want to look at me as, this guy might be a problem, he might be a threat.
Right, okay.
And, you know, at that time, Northern State Prison, Mayor Sharp James had, I heard, made a deal that the only way he would allow that prison in Newark is that it had to be 50% Newark employees in there. And that was good, because I came in those first shipments because of that.
Okay.
And when I got there and I saw these young people from Newark there, I was elated, because I had not been around young people in Newark in 9 years when I came back up this way.
Okay.
And then at the same time, because of that deal, you had young black officers, but you had a lot of racist white officers who had rank.
Right.
So they came too. So they brought an atmosphere with them of when they seen hostility, and the fact that the liberties that Northern State would allow you because of 50% Newark black young cops.
Right.
They saw that we could actually infiltrate these young people. I mean, they saw that that was possible, not with me particularly. But they saw it, and it was starting to happen. It was happening. So because of that, certain guys like me, who they saw had a lot of influence. Now, mind you, at this time, I'm 26 years old, and the officers are anywhere from 18 to 22.
Okay, okay.
You see?
So they kind of like gel with you because
Yeah.
you're about the same age. And
Right, and some of these kids, their older brothers and sisters were on the streets with us growing up. You understand?
Yeah, I get it.
So now they really feel like these is the guys we worshipped coming up.
Right.
So that's what they saw, and that led to me ending up a target. And if anything that this cop could find on me, and eventually, you know, he came up with something on me. But as a result of that, one time it was a threat. I'm just trying to remember if this was that time. But whatever the thing was, they threw me in the hole. I ended up with 4 months lockup in the hole. While I was there, you know, the institutional rules say after 3 days, if they don't give you a decision, it's automatically thrown out. You got to come out of the hole.
Okay.
5 days passed.
No decision.
Then it came. So I know, like, hey, I'm out anyway. They didn't uphold it. The warden, Mr. Stevens, upheld it. So as a result of him upholding it, I wasn't going nowhere. So in my anger, I'm walking back and forth in the cell, frustrated, trying to figure out how do I get some attention here? Like, what am I going to do now? You know, because all of this affects your prison time.
Okay.
I mean, you can lose some serious time over this. So time that you put in could be snatched back now. So now you're thinking about all of this, and it begins to feel like there's no way out. There's just no way out. I don't know the future anymore. And in that moment, I'm trying to figure out whether I should set the cell on fire, whether I should stuff blankets and stuff in the toilet and flood it out, because that's generally what guys do, because it's the only power they got to rebel, to try to get some attention, to call more professional administrative people and to pay attention to this.
Right.
But it's coming from them. So that's what happened. And then in that moment, I had not eaten in 4 or 5 days. That was part of my protest.
Okay.
Something
Similar
to
not to cut you off, part myself. But something similar to the Dick Gregory type.
Yeah, it was your way of protest. Well, he was fasting.
Right.
This was protest. This was being done for protest purpose. But what I didn't know was, and I learned later, was once you get angry and, you know, your vitals, you have not, your pace, the pace of your body has had to slow because of the not consuming nutrients. Your body kind of goes into hibernation, like a bear does, right? And in that hibernation, if you get excited, like you like jump up, you ever been asleep and you jump up too fast and it's dizziness and all that? Okay. When you ain't had any fluids coming into your body for that longer period of time of food, and you're back and forth, you were angry, you know, man, I ain't taking this no more. You raise your pressure and everything, and your heartbeat. And while I'm walking back and forth angry, I'm not realizing how angry I'm getting. Now all of a sudden I can hear my heart boom, 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 boom. I can feel it. And then I can hear it, which I've never experienced. I could hear in my ear. I said, oh, whoa. All of a sudden it switched from anger to fear. I said, oh, God. So I went and sat on the bed because I couldn't come down. I could feel my chest. I was like, oh my God. And the thought, of course, came right behind that. Man, you getting ready to die. You are getting ready to die in this prison cell. So, ain't nothing you can do about it. You can't make a phone call. Don't nobody see what's happening to you. We don't mean to die like that. You can't afford it. You ain't even got a stamp or an envelope. You can't even write nobody for help. You finished. Only thing you can do, the only thing left you can do is pray. That's the way it came to me.
That's the way it came to you?
And that's what I did, because it was true.
Okay.
You think about it. What's the first thing out of people's mouths as soon as they're in a scared position? Oh God.
Right.
Right? It wasn't no different in this case.
Right.
I'm at oh God.
Right.
I'm there.
Hey, yo, listen, Dennis. No matter what situation the person is in life, right? When a situation like that occurs, the first person you call on is the Most High, right?
Lord.
The Most High.
Lord.
I don't care what you control anybody to say.
Right.
First thing happens is to call the Most High. Like,
Call
listen,
the Most High.
let me get out of this and let me give some substance to my life. Well, go ahead.
And this prayer was like, look, and it was an angry prayer. It was angry because I was like, why are you allowing this to happen? Almost like that. Like, and then it switched to help me to help them. You know, like I'm watching what's happening also to guys in this hole, how they being beat, how one guy was killed. I'm watching this, and I never knew. I mean, you hear it when you're in population, but I'd never been to the hole, so I never was inside looking at this. And now I'm angry because on top of what I've seen, now you're telling me that I'm up here with freedom papers trying to show y'all I'm free. I should be free. And they said, we don't recognize that here, nigga.
For real?
That's what it was like. Like, I done showed y'all that number one, the reason why it probably took them so long is because they really didn't have the evidence to prove I did anything. That's why it took so long.
Right.
So now y'all gonna slide it under my door at night on the fifth night. Try to slide it under my door at night, and I see it, and when I read it, that's why I'm upset. That's why I cannot believe this. Y'all supposed to let me out of here.
Right.
Y'all know it.
Right.
On default, if nothing else, you know.
Right.
But yeah, that had to happen because something much larger was unfolding. Because as I began to pray in my anger and spill out all of these reasons why the world was wrong and unfair, God began to rescind back to me to what I recognize as the God conscious. Because this wasn't no selfish stuff that was being relayed back to my conscious. It wasn't selfish, you see. So when I would say something like, why don't you help us? And the response in my conscious would be, if you are so upset, then do something about it. Help yourself. I help those who help themselves. So you've been sitting up in here. You done read everything you need to understand about how civilizations are structured. You understand about how organizations are established.
I don't mean to cut you off, Dennis, because we really want some of the youth to these books are motivation books and empowerment books, and it teaches not only about empowerment and motivation, but it also teaches self-discipline. So maybe you want to give them some of the books that you've read, and maybe because I think books are enlightenment, right? So they enlighten people and they change their mindset. So
Right.
maybe you want to give some of them books.
Well, in general, when you are dealing with any science, any field, it's everything that I'm talking about is basically the sciences of life taught in your universities. Only the difference is pretty much what I was given was directly from those sources that were exceptional and contributed something to history.
Okay.
So the books that I'm so even though I might be saying that we civilizations, you understand everything about how civilizations are structured. That's basically in the fact that they had us studying sociology, archaeology, biology, geology, you know, all of that. In general. However, when you talk about books, regarding the books that begin to educate us specifically, then most of it we had to get was either from exceptional individuals in our modern time who have exceeded things, or in the past. So whether you're talking about the Art of War, Sun Tzu, whether you're talking about Sid Arthur, whether you're talking about World's Great Men of Color, Stolen Legacy, Africa's Gift to America, 48 Laws of Power, I'm Okay, You're Okay. All of these books is what was given to me. And these books made you well-rounded from everything from philosophy to all the sciences, right? So it's not a problem. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these books, though, most of the books that I have read, particularly regard history, religion, and personal development. Yeah, so that's what was coming to me.
Right.
Okay, you already understand how civilizations are structured. You already know how organizations are incorporated. This is all stuff we just had at our
but the thing about it is, the reason why I said
exposure.
that because a lot of young men are not exposed to those particular books. And that's why, a lot of times,
made sense.
Yeah, a lot of time that's why we see so much violence because exposure to different things makes your mindset change. And so when you're not exposed to those things, then your mindset stays the same, and you get that same mentality of what you looking at me for. I would know why you're looking at me if I had a mindset different, because my mindset would change. And it wouldn't be on the defense. It would probably be more on the offense. But go ahead, finish telling me.
Well,
you know what I really wanted to get into, D? I really wanted to get in, how did you formulate that prodigal sons and daughters? Why you were institutionalized and made it a whole happening. And I don't call it an organization, I call it a movement. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I say it's a movement, because once you start moving the masses, then it becomes greater.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about that. How you formulated that particular movement. Why you were locked up. So that's the strength.
Well, the first thing that I recognized, even from the whole that was coming to me, was that you were going to have to become a master strategist because you were working from nothing. It was almost like the beginning of creation or something. Like you're starting from nothing. You're in the hole with nothing. So what would be the first thing that you could use? Yourself. So the first thing they had to do was I had to change me. And now that required steps. So that required writing or structuring steps. So that was the beginning of the formation of not only a program for self-development, you know, based on that knowledge that I had acquired, but furthermore, that self-development program would go into many facets of life. It wasn't just me and how I should think. It was how should you think in regards to authority? How should you think in regards to family, relationships? You know, how should you think in regards to what you think your ability is as a person coming out of the system and competing to rise above the stigma? All of these things, like how do we, these are realities we're going to have to deal with. So there should be a familiar, not only experience that we've all had and where we all messed up in betraying these different areas, but there should be a system of repair if it's not too late. And so what would be the system, what would be the character that we would come into a household with? So we started thinking character first. This was the developer of the curriculum.
Okay.
So character is first, looking at self first, peeling back the layers, deciding what's good about me, what I need to get rid of on the other side. Character building. Second, after you look at this new character you want to develop, how is that new character communicating? How are people not going to take you for being just somebody fronting that you changed? So what would come after you actually building the character? It would be your example. So that would be actually communications. Communication is almost 60% nonverbal. Most people communicate their opinions of you or me by sight. People aren't being mentioned. They determine by sight whether you're their kind of people, whether you say or do something that attracts them, whether your energy attracts them. They're deciding this before they even get to you, most of the time. Okay, so now if that's what's happening, then communications, the second thing, is not telling people you changed, it's communicating that you changed. Don't try to talk them into it, walk them into it.
I like that. That was a gem. Don't try to talk them into it, walk them into it.
That's right.
I like that one. That was a gem.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about.
Right.
And that was the beginning. Now, nobody would have followed the program if they didn't see me doing it. Right?
By example.
Right.
By example.
So I knew coming out of that hole, something had to appear in front of them that would make them go, what's going on with you, man? You know, why you ain't doing what we do? Well, because I'm good now. So now, if I didn't think of that, and I recognize and respect that all intelligence, especially the more intelligent it is, all good is from God. That's what I always understood. So now I walked with that. I took that. And now I'm sitting in the hole, and this concept is coming together on little pieces of paper because I don't have much supply of any kind. And this little concept is coming together. And as it's happening, now I'm trying to figure out, well, what do you call it? Because this is important. This name is key. Because the name has to do something that nothing else in the message can do. In other words, just like that Nike symbol, once you see it, you already know now.
You recognize it.
Yeah, you know everything behind it. You see? Okay, so now I'm like, this name has to get us in the door where previous to this, we can't even get in the door. Whatever that name is, it's got to defy their resistance. And so it began to come to us that, I say that because the guy conscious thinking, it began to come to me that whatever it is, it has to have such a solid foundation as respected, and they got to forgive us. They got to forgive us. But we got to become it. We can't be playing. It ain't like we just going to take on this name and we really ain't going to be it. We got to be it. Okay. So now I'm sitting back, and the next revelation that comes is the remembrance of coming up in the church. And this story about the son.
The prodigal son.
Yeah, and him being lost. And I'm trying to remember what was the name of it, though. And I'm going through that for a minute. And then I asked one of the officers well, first of all, I'm getting ahead of myself. By this time, I'd already eaten. They was glad to hear that I would eat something. And now, this is days later, I'm asking them, this is a while later, I'm asking them, when you go past the chapel on your way to the mess hall, to the officers' dining room, can you stop by and ask the chaplain for a Bible? And so he said, okay, all right. Now, a lot of these chaplains were Protestants and stuff like that. So they would give you a concordance with it.
Oh yeah, the words that what it means.
Yeah, and
The actual
anything you
meaning
anything you want to find, like the actual reference, where's that?
Yeah, the
Right?
reference, what the
Yeah.
word means and everything.
Yeah. So I'm looking through it, and then in this order, it said lost coin, and I said, no, that ain't gonna stick. That ain't it. Then it said lost sheep. I said, hey, that's pretty good. I started thinking about that. But then I started thinking that might be used too much. I'm not sure. But then right behind it was lost son. I said, that's it. I think that's it. And when I read it, the thing that really got me was it wasn't just the fact that the name matched, because the word meant prodigal, meant reckless, wasteful, and careless. I said, well, that's definitely us. But then I looked for see if what the parable said. The parable's outline was, to me, literally how you set it up. Because the parable had to do with A, lost individual, B, a lost individual who goes out there into the world and gets caught up. C, out of pride and shame and all other stuff, insulates it, right? And adopts it within themselves. 4, if they find themselves in terrible situations as a result of bad decisions. 5, like the prodigal son, he attached himself to a rich guy who had all his property and wealth, but gave him the worst job. That's exactly like being stuck in the New Jersey prison system or any prison system. You got the worst job and you ain't making no money at all. So now I'm looking at these readings and I'm able to compare it. Like, yeah, this is where I'm at right now. You know? So
this is all me, right?
This is me right here.
And the people that's behind me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
This is it right here.
Right.
So I'm looking at it, and then it says that the prodigal son, he longed to fill his belly with the husk that was fodder for the pigs. He was so hungry, he was so in need that the slop that the hogs was eating, he was entertaining the idea of reducing himself down there to eat. And that's when he came to his senses. So that's the point where I was at. Came to his senses, and he said, man, my father's servants live better than this. Man, you're going to be so proud that you're going to go through all this rather than to humble yourself, man, and go home to your father and say, Father, I've sinned against God and against you. I no longer deserve to even be called your son. Just accept me back as a servant and treat me like all the other servants. Now, when a guy or a woman comes home from prison, they are so beat down by the experience that even though this is the home that they came from, they just want a job. I just need a job. Just give me a job and I'll show you, you know, I'm trying to do the right thing. Okay. When society does not even give you a job, and this is a Christian nation that prides itself on that, and the prodigal son comes home seeking remorse and forgiveness and willing to be a servant to prove himself, and you ain't got a system in place to meet him. But this is what you teach. It's a basic seminary teaching. I'm just saying that part to show you. So we knew we didn't want to wait on anybody else to rescue us. If we had taken responsibility for putting ourselves in this position, and now that particularly, even though the laws, the sentencing laws have proven to be disproportionately not in favor of people of color, and as a result of that, everyone has now admitted to the injustice of the old sentence or the new sentencing laws or the present ones. And because of that, with us now having sufficient amount of evidence as a people that we should not leave our fate in the hands of anyone, that helped us to understand the self-help part of who we had to become. And in doing so, we had to start thinking of ourselves, not only in terms of looking out for ourselves, but how does a group of people look out for themselves? Well, let's look at it. When the founding fathers of this country first came here, what most people don't understand is also in a lot of those books is that they were outcasts from England. And a lot of them being outcasts from England when they got here, they not only had the British, once they started situating themselves, that they had to deal with from coming from the water from the east, but they had the Indians on the land here. Now, if that group of people had not, even though these outcasts, many were criminals, if they had not pulled themselves together as a group of people,
Unified.
yeah, and set up a law, a constitution, a Bill of Rights, a Declaration of Independence, if they didn't set up a system to govern themselves, how were they going to ever assure that they wouldn't just have a whole criminal, out of control situation?
Anarchy.
Just craziness.
Anarchy.
So they said, okay, we got to set up a system. And based on that, they developed their system, and that system is what they eventually used to provide or meet every need that they had as a nation. And so on the similar level, even if you want to give blame to others for the condition that we are presently in, the fact that you're aware now of how you were put in that position no longer justifies you staying in that position.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
Now, if you don't know,
That's a whole different situation.
that's different.
But you do know.
You do know.
And so now we want to feed off a little bit of that system that you put in place for the prodigal sons and daughters, because
Right.
we got to mention the daughters too, because there's a
Absolutely.
lot of lost daughters out here that need to come back and find a whole different realm of thinking, and it's not basically anybody's fault. It's just that mindset has to change. So
And most of them have not been incarcerated yet.
right,
So don't assume that when we're talking about people who are prodigal,
that it has to be incarcerated.
yeah,
No,
You
it's
can
just
be
people
reckless,
lost.
wasteful,
Just
careless.
people that's lost.
Lost, yeah, you can be lost.
It's
anyway.
just lost because when you look at the Bible, he wasn't in prison. He
Nope.
just wanted to rebel
That's right.
and went out there and did all the things that he wanted to do because that's what he thought that would make him happy.
That's
and then
right.
he realized a whole total
Another
different,
world was
a whole
out there waiting on him.
Right. So
A monster.
yeah. So
Now his brother, I just want to mention, rejected
yeah.
him coming home.
What did he say? What did he say to his father? He said to his father, he said, "Why you want? I've been
Yeah,
here with
this
you
guy,
all this
man,
time.
yeah, you
I've
ain't-
been here with you all this time,
Yeah.
and you sit here and let him come back."
Yeah.
But he didn't understand what his father was doing.
Yeah, his father was outlining for him, no, you don't understand. See, your understanding was this was always yours. You understood who you was and where you belonged.
He
But
didn't.
your brother couldn't see this.
Right,
Now, when he left here, he was dead.
right.
In other words, not only mentally, in a sense, of not being aware, awake to where his true purpose was, but he had to accept the possibility that when he walk out of here into that world,
He could never come
might
back.
not make it back.
He can never come back. Right.
So that father was also accepting he was dead. Now look at him. You wonder why I'm celebrating. It's my son, man. You know?
He was dead, but now he's alive.
He's alive, man. He was blind.
Yeah.
Now he can see.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm doing this, man. In fact, the reason why I put a crown on his head and new shoes and a robe on his back and all that is because the knowledge that he has now protects the future of the house. So now you got to give him the authority to protect the house. He knows how to protect the house. He's been on both sides of it.
Right. As well as
That brings us to this stuff
to
here.
I say it's a movement, not an organization, right? So because
Yeah.
we want to move people in the direction they need to be moved in order for them to actually go. So we took this this logo that you have, right? Why every man should know about guns, and then it has murder 30 years of life. It has armed robbery 15 years, assault 10 years, kidnapping 20 years, carjacking 15 years, possession of a gun 5 years. And what that's really telling people is that when you go out there into the world and do certain things, the consequences are all of these things, right? So what we want you to do is understand how it can obtain, how you will be obtained in this jail for that amount of years for doing a certain crimes that you commit. So we really want y'all to really focus. And I want to talk a lot, because this is going to be a series, because we want to go in depth about the re-entry program. So when people do come home, where they can go in order for them to try to find jobs. We want to also have some merchandise that's going to be available for the general public for sale, so they can actually help the cause. Because we ain't asking for no free nothing, no donations and none of that. But if, we're not asking for that, but we will supply some merchandise for schools, for anti-gun violence, for things that will help kids before they get in that situation where they're going to go in prison. Because I have some notes here that I had put down.
And I want to say while you're doing that, in regards to what you're saying, what we have to understand as a community, particularly the black community, and we know that the gun violence is not limited to that, but there's a particular type of gun violence that exists in every community. And particularly in our community, we have less of, thank God, at this time, of what you would call these mass shootings.
Right.
And we have more targeted shootings that are out of control, where guys actually have beefs with each other, and that's the mainstay of guns being used, in addition to the fact that, we...
Poverty, too.
Yeah, in addition to the fact that we disproportionately rob each other more than any other people even think about doing it. But I want to say, in regards to what you were just saying about the time for each one of these crimes, that only identifies a portion of the circumstances is the time. The effect that it has on your psyche to be incarcerated for that long period of time has been outlined in a term called post-incarceration syndrome, which is a form of post-traumatic stress disorder. So that any time that you've been subjected to an abnormal situation for an extended period of time, you can expect a negative result. So now any individual, regardless, that does any length of time, begin to automatically, not only psychologically misdirect their scope of their potential, but delay all that potential. And in fact,
Wow.
and
Say that again, D. Say that one more
they
time.
not only disconnect their potential, but they delay that potential, even if they have an opportunity later to pursue it.
Right.
Not only that, but you're doing that to the people connected to you, because every time you're either a liability or an asset. So you're either adding or you're subtracting from. So if you are out here doing the wrong thing and you're connected to a whole, a family, and you get subtracted from that whole, now that's like a chain that's been broke and a link has been taken out. And now the chain is broken, sitting there, delayed because of what you did. Now, what's even worse, not only have you delayed things or ceased them probably, but now we got to turn around and take the resources to repair the situation on our end. And now you want us to continue to finance you where you got to go and deal with that. So now, if you take the economics of any family, that's an economy. So now when you are doing these things, you're not only upsetting the balance of the nuclear family itself. You not only just, and we underestimate the effect that's having. Right? We're not only unbalancing that, but you're also unbalancing the community in that regard. Because when other men naturally see your woman now unprotected, uncared for, men are naturally going to gravitate to apply for that position. In spite of them knowing that's your woman. What would strengthen us is for those brothers to tell her, no, we got you now. All us. Sit tight. You see? But even prior to that, why is this man in here? That he jeopardized everything. Now, don't get me wrong. We know it's a fact that we place men and women in this country in positions to where the desperate need for survival alone will force a person to take what they need to survive. Okay, we know that. So the men in our community have to have men who are examples for them, who are, number one, independent thinkers. Number two, independent producers. They have to have that ability. I can say I'm free all I want, but if I can't produce independent of depending on you, I'm not free.
Right. If you have to depend on somebody else, then how you going to be free? Right.
I'm not free.
Right.
Even if the government of the United States said to me they were going to stop giving me whatever benefits they have been giving me, and it had never occurred to me that the possibility could happen that they could stop taking care of me, I need to make sure I put some things in place for myself. That's my fault.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, right? Now
So that's the thinking behind Prodigals doing for self.
Yeah.
Helping
So
themselves.
this is what I'm getting ready to get to. So in order for us to say that we got to govern ourselves and actually take time to make sure that we have strategies in place to govern our communities and individuals, what we have to do now is we have to try to give other people the mindset of their own economics, right? In order for them to get their own economics, then we have to start talking about self-employment, right? So we have to give them entrepreneurship. In order for them to really achieve their goals, they have to be some kind of entrepreneur, the tax breaks and all of that, or whatever goes along with that, right?
Sure.
But the first thing and the foremost thing is to actually have them gravitate to what is it that you can do for yourself, that you can be an entrepreneur, and that you won't have to have assistance from anybody else.
Right.
I mean, so you can use the financial system, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because that's what America is built on. It's built on debt and it's built on finances.
But
right?
what people don't understand a lot of times is the American system is not perfect, but it's the best capitalist system.
Yeah.
It is the best one.
Yeah. Anybody else that come to this country will tell you that too.
Oh, this is a giant marketplace.
Yeah.
That's all this is.
Yeah.
They can talk like it's a nationality and all that. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's a big business.
It's a business. America's a business.
That the whole everything's for sale.
Yeah.
There is nothing that's not for sale. So that understanding that, the first thing I want to say is when you go back to those 6 skill sets,
Right.
character building, communication. The third one is conflict resolution, because that is a big deal.
So get those gems, because I don't know if y'all listening, but these are some of the things that need to take place in order for these steps, right? So
Right, and I'm saying this in line because you brought me back to them.
Right.
And what you mentioned about finance.
Right.
Because it's once again character building, communications, conflict resolution, family reorientation, financial literacy,
Right.
what you were talking about,
Right.
and finally networking.
Right.
Now, and as we were saying, in the building of character, the real success that you attract is in your character.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
Okay. Then once you look at the character and you learn how to enhance the best of that character, now you learn to communicate it in your actions. Now after you learn to walk them into it and not try to talk them into it.
That's that gym again. That's that gym
I know
again.
you like hearing that. You go into the conflict resolution part. Now, why did we put conflict resolution third? If you change your character and you know how to communicate that change, you've made a lot of conflicts in the old character.
An old character. Right.
So now if you know how to communicate the new self, then that's what it's time to do.
You're going to resolve the old.
You're going to resolve the old
conflict.
with the new character.
But you know that
Yeah.
even goes deeper though, D, because now because now there's the new you, so you resolving some of the old characteristics in yourself.
In yourself.
Not only with the people that you.
That's right.
That
Starts with you.
It starts with you. So now
Starts with you.
Right.
Now
Get that. That's some gem for you. You got to first take care of the conflict within yourself before you have a resolution with conflicts with others.
you can't resolve conflicts with others. You can't avoid constantly having conflicts with others. You can't avoid constantly being stressed out. You can't avoid constantly being worried, being fearful,
Anxiety.
you can't do any of that until you realize that everything that's happened is being geared from your own thought process. The things in your environment play a role in it. Time plays a role in it. All these things become your excuses for either doing it or not doing it. And so when you get to financial literacy, family reorientation. Family reorientation has to do with redefining family on different levels. Being that society is changing, not only the nuclear family is examined and what those specific roles guarantee. So the nuclear family, the original family, man and woman, son and daughter. The man and woman, when you define the man and woman's role, it's easy to define the son and daughter's role because they're just in training to be these two.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay, that's almost like a natural genetic connection. It's like Legos or something, design, the lock. Because as long as the daughter continues the job of the woman, it guarantees the natural order in the human family to continue.
The natural
Progression of it, right? Now, when you get to tampering with that, you have to know that you're not going to get what the original plan was.
Because that link is broke now.
It's broke.
Yeah, that link is broke.
You've altered it.
Yeah.
So now, whatever you get now, whether society tells you it's okay, or religion tells you it's okay, or revelation tells you it's okay, that's up to you. What we have as a foundation is from the beginning of the existence of man, we understand why man and woman exist. We understand why they exist. Because we could not be up here if those two had not held
to the law that God gave
That's
them.
right. So
he said what he said. He said multiply, right?
Right. So now I say this because I get asked this question personally, and I tell people, look, something you have to understand is we don't get into personal as an organization. Now you're asking me as an individual to tell you my personal business and how I feel about a particular issue. Here's my personal opinion. I understand I cannot affect the love that somebody has for somebody else. So if they are not imposing anything on me, why would I impose on them what they can and can't do? That's on them. All of us have to deal with the consequences of whatever it is we do. What I personally think is called personal for a reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's called that for if I tell you it ain't personal no more. But I do understand that people have a right to do with themselves whatever they want to do. Now, what the consequences might be, that's different.
That's between the law and God.
That's them.
It's between law and God. You got to deal with two people.
Right.
The law, if you do something wrong, and God, if
Right.
it is not in accordance to what He guided us to do.
Yes, but I have no personal opinions about what people decide to do unless it directly hurts me or other people.
Right.
If it's two people consensual, well, they decided to do that.
That's why I said they got to deal with either the law or God. That's
yes,
it.
they do.
So what we're going to do is, because this is going to be like a 10-part series, because we haven't even touched the criminal. We haven't even touched the criminal part. We haven't touched the violent part, because this is what the Prodigal Sons and Daughter movement is about. It's about helping individuals and enlightening for non-gun violence, the reunification of their self, the motivation of self, to give self-awareness and self-employment, right? So we haven't even touched on that part yet. We haven't even touched on that part right now. So we haven't even touched on that part right now. So we're going to have to come back, because it's been almost an hour and some change. So we started running it up. We got to come back.
That's what editing, I guess, is for, right?
Yeah. So because we need to do this maybe once a week or twice a week, and keep pushing the awareness of gun violence, keep pushing the education of self.
And the connection of all of the social problems in our community, particularly to this issue. It's really that all of these issues, this is the outcome of a lot of internal social problems that have existed for a long time. And one of the problems of today is our leadership will speak modestly about the truth of why we are in this condition. But even worse, even if they didn't say anything, they aren't acting. Even if it was quietly, they aren't acting to deal with the issue.
You see, the only time that it seems like the politicians want to really get involved. Not to throw anybody under the bus. It's when some kind of movement or activity happens, or somebody get killed that's famous, or somebody that get killed, and then it's all an uproar about the gun violence. But the gun violence continues and exists every day. It's 127 cities that actually have murders currently. It's like almost, I got a statistic right here. It's like in the black community, it's 10 times more likely to be somebody murdered or killed. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain that women feel, a lot of pain for their kids, a lot of pain for their uncles and the uncles, children, fathers that actually get murdered in these streets. And that sore and that pain, it just deepens more and more every day. But see, we didn't even get into that because that's a whole nother episode.
Well, just keep in mind, people, that the robber, the murderer, we raising them in our houses. It's not like somebody comes into the city from out of town on horseback, a bunch of rustlers ride up in here shooting and take everything. Mm-hmm. They live up the street, around the corner, and down the alley. We know who they are, but that's only part of the problem. There's enough blame to go around, but that's only part of the problem. The bigger part of the problem right now is we have become too dependent on others to solve these problems. I'm telling you, there is no cavalry coming. We've got to solve these problems. And we can't keep avoiding them simply because we expect or hope that either the police, the government, or Jesus will come down out of the sky and solve this problem. We understand that we would all like to see that happen. But every day we wake up and nobody else is taking up that part, we need to do it. That's all I have to say. I know the brother
This is Dennis Porter. He will be back. This is Prodigal Sons and Daughters, a movement, not an organization, it's a movement. And we're going to continue to go through a process of giving y'all some information that we have. We want y'all to definitely support this movement via, you can get in touch with them. Tell them where they can get in touch with you, Dennis.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Mac and Wise here for keeping us first all the time. We are located in East Orange, New Jersey at 60 Evergreen Place, Suite 200. We also have expanded into the state of Georgia and Atlanta. You can go on our website and get that information, www.prodigalsite.org. We also in Winter Haven, Florida. So look us up, and I should mention that I'll probably be going to Africa. It'll be the second time the Prodigal Sons and Daughters went there. We have a deal on the table with Ghana, and we are trying to expand Prodigals into Ghana, both our reentry and mental health services. So that's some of what we're working on.
And we will be back probably next week with the will of God. We'll help Dennis come back, and then we'll get into more content about the gun violence that's been plaguing actually the United States, period. And until the next time, be at peace. Peace.